Good evening. Welcome to the Sabby and Jaybe show. My name is James Fauntleroy. I am one of your hosts. It is so good to see you here and so good to see all of you here on this beautiful Thursday. Just to let you guys know, the Sabby and Jaybe show is every single Thursday at 5 p.m. Yes, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So if you guys would like to, you guys can tune in. Just like I said, I am one of your hosts, JB. Sabs, good to see you.
What's up, JB?
All right. Just to let you guys know, if you guys would like to, you guys can also tune in on RBN. If you guys would like to get email notifications, you guys can go to revolutionaryblackout.substack.com so you guys can get those email notifications whenever we go live or upload clips. And we'll get into the other house cleaning stuff in a little bit. Hello to everybody that's watching. I will get to you afterwards. But while we are here, we have a special guest. We have Chairman Omali Yeshitela, an activist, advocate, and organizer, also with the African People's Socialist Party and the Uhuru movement. Uhuru, Chairman Omali.
Uhuru, Brother JB, thank you so much. And you too, Comrade Sister Sabby, thank you so much for helping us to get our views out to the world.
Definitely. Now, you, Chairman, you have been on both of our channels independently before, and we have actually been talking about the subsequent issues that have been happening with the FBI that happened in 2022 when they did a pre-dawn raid. And then we also spoke about the indictments that have been pushed on you, the unfair indictments that have been pushed on you by the Department of Justice. And so we can just do just a quick review over that, the details about what's going on. So, and then we can get into what further is going on as of right now.
Splendid. Well, as you mentioned, in July of 2022, in fact, on July 29th, I was awakened, or rather some of us, my wife and I were awake already at 5 o'clock in the morning, and this thunderous sound came from outside our house, declaring that everybody at this address should come out with our hands empty and our hands up, and that this was the FBI. And immediately explosions began to occur. We were to learn later that even in the back stairwell of the house, this was happening, and throughout the neighborhood. And these were flashbang grenades that were going off. My wife, I went downstairs first to greet them, and I was greeted by lights in my face and the sight of armored personnel vehicle were standing around which were these camouflage military forces who were armed with military assault weapons that were had mounted on them laser targeting devices that were hitting me in the chest when I came out. So it was clear that this was a threat on my life. And I thought really that they were going to kill me, as they had done with Fred Hampton in 1969 in a pre-dawn raid there in Chicago. And so I came downstairs after having asked my wife to call and let people know we were under siege. But she couldn't succeed in doing that because they had jammed our phones. So my wife, she comes down behind me, and as she opens the door, she's almost hit in the face by a drone that they've sent up the stairs into our house. I am zip tied behind my back. My wife is handcuffed behind her back. They went into our home. They were there for hours. And at the same time, I was to learn that they had gone across town, and we live in a predominantly African community here in St. Louis, North St. Louis. In fact, most impoverished sector of the city. And at the same time, they had gone to South St. Louis, where we also have an office that's headquartered, that's run by the African People's Solidarity Committee, a primarily white force sector of our movement. They had raided them too. They had come to this place. They'd knocked down every door. They had broken every door that in the place. They broke windows. They broke windows at my home. They took devices, communication devices. They took laptops and cell phones and all kinds of devices. And at the same time, in St. Petersburg, Florida, not too far from where you're located, Jaybe, they went to my home. This is where I'm from, though my wife and I are here in St. Louis. And there was an army of them that went into the house, took devices and everything. They went to our office in St. Petersburg, Florida. They knocked down doors. They took our radio temporarily off the air. And then they raided our files. They stole documents. It was an incredible military type assault. And we were to learn that this was happening because they had indicted a Russian national in Russia. And they said our name came up in the indictment, and they had a search warrant. Mm-hmm. It's an extraordinary thing that they had done. It was a military attack, and they said to get a search warrant because they said that we have this relationship with a Russian national. So that's happening then. 9 months later, and we were declared unindicted co-conspirators with Alexander Ionov, the Russian in Russia. But no charges were made. 9 months later, they indict us. And that 9 months is a period of time which we have no legal standing. So we couldn't even go into a courtroom and say, we want them to stop doing what they are doing because officially they haven't done anything. I know it's extraordinary, but that's where we were. And so it was, they indicted us 9 months later. And I think it was something like 3 months later, they actually had us a hearing in Tampa, Florida, the federal court there, where they booked us, where they fingerprinted us, they mugshot me. They had us in leg irons and handcuffs and what have you, and then put us on this bond, supposed to be a good bond, a nice bond, because it was a $25,000 bond, signature bond. But the conditions were my passport was taken, no weapons could be in the house. I had to report to them weekly. I could not travel without permission. And these were the circumstances they dropped on us. And most recently, we've learned that we're supposed to go to trial on September 3rd in Tampa, Florida. And so we're preparing for that now. And this is one of the things that makes this discussion that we're having here today important too, because we're saying all out to Tampa, Florida, September 3rd. We're saying between now and then it's going to be a long, hot summer, that we're going to do a lot of work organizing and galvanizing people and organizations to be in Tampa. So that's sort of where we are, Comrade Jaybe.
Yeah.
And I'll add to, for those who are not aware, Black Agenda Report has also been keeping up with the story about Uhuru, and I want to share this as well. We make this a little bit bigger for everybody, because they did actually post an article. This was in April. Black Agenda Report, April 3rd. Chairman Omali Yeshitela, Uhuru 3 put state on trial in fight back against bogus charges. So I want to hear a little bit about this as well, Omali, because it looks like you're outside of the courthouse here. Can we talk a little bit about what happened in this photo?
Thank you so much. That's really important, because what happened was that our lawyers, we have an extraordinary battery of lawyers who pursuing a group defense. And what our lawyers had done was make a motion that the charges be dismissed. And they raised all of the issues around free speech and said that, and for the purpose of the motion, they had to say that even if we did what the government said we did, is covered by the First Amendment and free speech, that we have a right to have said things, even if they said and it was true that we were benefiting from some resources from the Russians and advice from the Russians that we had to write. It didn't violate the Constitution. Of course, we didn't do those things, but that was the argument. And the motion, the brief that was filed by Leonard Goodman out of Chicago, who the brief that was filed went through the history of the African People's Socialist Party, Uhuru movement, the history that we have being opposed to NATO, because one of the charges is that it was the Russians who had us to come out in opposition to Ukraine. The history of even running political persons for office, because one of the charges is 2017, 2019, when we ran two comrades, Jesse Neville and Akile Nai in St. Petersburg for city council and mayor, that it was the Russians who paid for that. And we can also, our motion talked about how we've traveled all around the world. I have for 40, 50 years trying to win support for our struggle. And so this thing that they're claiming about somehow my trip to Moscow in 2015, 2 trips to Moscow for conferences sponsored by a non-governmental organization there was somehow evidence of working for Russia. So our motion, to dismiss the charges raises all of this stuff, and also says that this idea that we're sowing dissension and we passing on disinformation because what we said about Ukraine, because we said that the so-called Ukraine war was a part of a war against Russia that the United States has been involved in for many, many years. This is even before NATO was created and obviously subsequent to NATO. So we said that we got professors and everything who come out who talked about this, and they said, well, it doesn't matter if it's true. They said that disinformation is not disinformation because else is untrue. They said even the truth can be disinformation if it serves the Russians, something to that effect. So that's the logic that they're using, a real circular kind of logic that says it doesn't matter what we've done. And then they will place restrictions on what we can put forth as evidence in the trial, like the things I mentioned that's in this motion. To dismiss, they would try to make sure that we don't talk about this history, that we don't talk about the U.S. government attacks on the FBI attack on Marcus Garvey, that we don't talk about what they did with Du Bois, that we don't talk about what they did with Paul Robeson and all these other people, what they did to the Black Panther Party, that we don't talk about COINTELPRO. So they would try to place all kinds of restrictions on what can enter into this discussion. Said none of that makes any difference. The only thing that makes any difference is that somehow in 2014 we became employees of Russia, and so doing they destroy, they assault the agency of Black people. That we don't have enough intelligence to know that we're being oppressed and kicked around. That it takes somebody white to come in and influence us and tell us that you're being oppressed, etc. That's part of what it is that they're doing. They will liquidate our whole history, and they will liquidate their history. And that's the ominous thing, because their history, what they've done to us, their history that allows us to be able to say that you can talk about the First Amendment, and we are demanding that you respect the First Amendment, but we also recognize that the First Amendment was not written for us, that the Bill of Rights was not written for us. The First Amendment was created in 1791. We were still living as slaves at that time. We didn't even have anything that they would recognize as freedom until 1865. And even after that, it wasn't good enough. That's why there's a Civil Rights Bill in 1964 and a Voting Rights Bill in 1965, because there were no rights for Black people. And this is what makes it extremely dangerous for white people who might fall into the trap that they're trying to present here by saying, because it's Black people in Russia, that it's all right to attack us. But it's not our First Amendment rights they're attacking, because we never had them. It's yours. So they're coming to get you through us. And that's the part of the point that we really are trying to make as well. So, that's their conundrum. That's because we didn't write the First Amendment. We didn't write it. We didn't write it. It was not the Uhuru First Amendment. It's not Omali Yeshitela's First Amendment. It's your First Amendment. And we're not asking Joe Biden or anybody else like that to become African internationalists and support the revolution. we are holding your feet to the fire to support what you say you believe in. This is foundational, ideologically, politically, legally to the United States itself. This whole issue of free speech, et cetera, et cetera. That's the thing that we are pushing them on. And I think that it's an extraordinary moment in history.
One of the things that is kind of interesting how they link NGOs in Russia to the Russian government, but they somehow get bristled whenever you connect American NGOs to the United States government. Isn't that kind of funny?
Well, more than that, what we've just seen is recently there's a big stir because there's a country that's close to Russia. I can't remember now. You may know what I'm talking about. That has also begun to put forth a law that says something to the effect that any organization that receives more than, I think, 20% of their money from a foreign entity would face this whole charge about working as foreign agents for another government. And so the U.S. and all these other colonial countries are in uproar about that because it shows just how authoritarian Russians and forces associated with Russia are. When the fact is, if you just go to Haiti, there are more NGOs per square inch in Haiti than any place in the world. And who controls those NGOs? And through those NGOs, they control the economy of Haiti. They have more resources from those NGOs than the entire budget of Haiti itself. So this is the kind of stuff we're talking about. Of course, it's ridiculous and on its face. That's what this discussion we're having now is really important. Be able to have to say these things so that people can be better armed in terms of understanding what's going on and just how unfair the setup is.
What? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say, Chairman, I'm not sure if you're aware of this, but there have been a number of journalists, and I guess we would call them truth tellers, that have recently been attacked by whether it's the State Department or the DOJ for making trips to Russia, even though they've made trips to Russia in the past. Fiorella Isabel, for example, she's co-host at the Convo's Couch. She also has her own channel as well. Fiorella is based in Russia. She works for RT, so she is a journalist. She was detained when she left Russia to travel. They let her go, but still, Kit Clarenberg, who is based in the UK, if I remember correctly, was also detained in recent travels. The Washington Post just wrote a smear piece about Wyatt Reed and Max Blumenthal at the Gray Zone, calling them basically Putin propagandists and basically accusing them of taking money from Iran, which was not correct. Didn't have any evidence to prove that in the article, but was able to write that smear piece. And then more recently, Scott Ritter was going to travel to Russia to participate in the St. Petersburg Economic Forum, along with several others. He was taken off of the plane and had his passport seized by the State Department. Tara Reid is still stuck in Russia because she has been told she cannot come back to the United States. If she does, she may be arrested. There's a number of people that they're coming after now, and we can play that clip really quick if you want to as well, Jaybe, and then I want to get your opinion about that, Chairman.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so let me share it on screen.
And thank you for that too, Rondo. Yes, Edward Snowden is also still stuck in Russia. Yeah,
of course.
State Department officially seized the passport of Scott Ritter and prevented him from attending an economic forum in Russia. Scott Ritter is a former weapons inspector who since gained a large following as a geopolitical analyst who is critical of the United States empire and their endless wars. Because of his critical coverage, the Biden administration is now seeking to restrict his movement. Ask yourself this question. Why is the United States State Department so concerned with Americans and people in the West receiving the Russian perspective? Scott Ritter wasn't the only one. There was many journalists that was prevented from traveling to Moscow by the U.S. State Department. Maybe because if they did, they would realize that everything they was told about the Ukraine war was bullshit, Putin has no plans to invade Europe, the same way everything they tell you about Hamas hating Jews is bullshit. Question: what laws did Scott Ritter break? There's no travel ban to Russia, there's no arrest warrants that was made, and no explanation given about why his passport was seized. We are governed by a rogue administration that feels like they can do whatever they want, revoke the rights of whoever they want. If the government can take the rights away, they're not rights. They're just temporary allowances.
Just when these American citizens.
You're gonna skip past the George Carlin,
Yeah, because of course, you know, YouTube is like, no, you can't do that. So
I think that might be the end of it. Yeah.
Okay, great.
But
Yeah.
Chairman, you get the point. What's your take about this? How they're cracking down on all these people traveling to? And Moscow is a world-class city. Like a lot of times, I feel like when Russia is portrayed in Hollywood, I feel like they make it seem like Russia is this cold place where it snows all the time and there's no one around or whatever. But Moscow is a world-class city.
You left out the image of women in combat boots and shapeless. Yeah, it is the image that they have provided for Russia is it just serves a whole propaganda purpose of creating this notion that makes it easier for people to feel how much better off they are not to be associated with Russia and Russians, especially since Russia, especially since the Russian Revolution has been, main contender for ideological influence in the world. And so they want to say, and the civil rights movement and things like that was nothing but fodder for the people who were fighting against oppression. When they saw what was happening to Black people in this country, this became, great examples of the superiority of a system based on socialism, communism, than this capitalism that comes from enslaving people and colonizing people around the world. And so, they create this image of Russia, and you don't want to be a part of Russia, but it was enough to force them to have to, along with the courage of Black people in this country, fighting for rights and stuff like that. It was part of what forced them to have to do things like pass the Voting Rights and the Civil Rights Act, et cetera, because they were in this international contest for the opinions of the peoples of the world. So, and I think that what we're looking at is an extraordinary fragile system right now. It's extraordinarily fragile. It's not the first time we've seen something like this. I mean, we're talking about a system now where the college campuses are afire, but we saw that in the 1960s, didn't we? And they're on fire now because of what's happening with Palestinians in Gaza specifically, but the Palestinian question. In the 1960s in particular, it was the Vietnam and the heroic people of Vietnam who was fighting against the same social system. It was a crisis at that time. And then during that period of time also, just like now, there was a crisis with the legitimacy of the electoral process, with the legitimacy of the executive branch of the government. So now you got a former president who has just been indicted. You got a president's son who is on trial, even as we have this discussion right now. And then, of course, you had the assassination of a Kennedy, and then the assassination of his brother in terms of president. You had the so-called this break-in. How was it characterized? The break-in where the CIA was involved in and going into the Democratic Party headquarters and all of this stuff that sank the Nixon administration. You had Nixon forced out of power. You had Spiro Agnew, his vice president, forced out of power. So this bears a great resemblance right now to what we saw happening at that time. But the difference being, I believe, that we have the benefit of that period of time behind us. We have the benefit of organization now that makes it difficult for them to convince white people just to be stupidly following this anti-Black and kind of politic that they're putting forth. They're attacking us, and they've characterized us at different times in their polemics as some kind of Black nationalist, this and that hate group. But we lead an organization. Part of our organization, we exist in 120 more cities. Well, white people are actually in 120 more cities working under the leadership of this Black Revolutionary Organization. That makes it a little more complicated. Working for reparations for Black people, the same thing that they said that Russians paid us to do when we ran for office. But I think it's a very fragile situation. We have now the reemergence of political forces internationally that they had thought was dead, partially because they had done everything they can to kill them. Iran being a question. Remember, you're talking about Iran. The U.S. government overthrew the government of Iran in 1950, mid-1950s, and put this tyrant in power. And in 1979, the people rose up and kicked him out. And this is the basis for the attitude and they've had against the United States. You got Russia that they'd done a dance around it. I remember this guy, William Jefferson Clinton, how he celebrated, like it's all over. And this guy Fukuyama writing for Foreign Affairs about the end of history now, that Russia is over. It's all this is it. There's no further possibilities of development. That was how they saw it then. Now you see them having to contend with China, that they played cheap and they were going to go into China and they were going to exploit all the Chinese people, got 1 billion people and all this money they can make. And now they got to contend with China and the economic process of the colonized people as he reemerged and they're making this challenge. And so they're walking on thin ice right now. And they are doing what they can to try to preserve their legitimacy, one, to try to preserve the hegemony of the United States in the process of doing that, number two, and they would do whatever is necessary. It's an existential crisis for them. And by which I mean, they perceive it as life and death, which means, as we're having this discussion, we're talking about Joseph Biden. His government has just told this guy Kerensky did I pronounce his name? Kerensky was the Russian guy, wasn't it? But Vladimir in Ukraine, that they can use U.S. weapons to attack Russia.
Yeah.
Inside Russia.
Inside Russia.
Mm-hmm.
Inside Russia. And this is the kind of crisis, that's their crisis. It's a profound crisis, and we just have a responsibility. My objective is to continue working to build this anti-colonial movement around the world. I mean, and throughout this country. We built a response to this attack on us that involves something like 40 different organizations. There are Mexicans, Filipinos, there are Africans, there are various kinds of forces who now recognize that the colonial question is the critical question, always has been. That's what you're looking at in Palestine. That's what you're looking at in Vietnam. That's what you're looking at Cuba. That's what you're looking at Black people in this country. It would be gone beyond that place. And now the question is to help people understand we're not looking at just a lot of little colonialism. We're looking at a colonial mode of production that connects us all. And the very process of pursuing life and the production of life in the world today revolves around this platform of colonialism. All the resources is coming from the colonized peoples of the world. The need to control all of Africa. The fact that for the first time, why in the hell would they place a Negro over the Department of Defense, who is also tied to all kinds of arms industry? Why would they make a Black man, the first time in 246-year history of the Marine Corps, they would make a Black man, give him a 4-star, the 4th star. Never happened before. 246 years, and what did they do with him? They put him in charge of the Africa Command to control Black people in Africa and also to lead the struggle against the China and Russia if they have to on the ground in Russia. And then, of course, the Joint Chiefs of Staff is chaired now by a Black man from the Air Force, a general. So this is how the face of the whole military wing of the United States is looking. This is where you see the so-called integrated, this integration that they talk about happening in this instance, so that they utilizing Black people, colonized people, to fight colonized people, which is part of the whole tradition, not just of this country, but all the colonizers. 71% of the people of the French troops who fought against Vietnam when under French colonialism were colonized people. From 50 to 64% of the people, U.S. troops who were on the front lines in Vietnam when Vietnam took up the French task were black people. And that's not even counting some other people who were not white who fought under the banner of the United States. So they used the colonized to fight their wars for them, and we'd come out with nothing at all except more oppression, more exploitation, and that's what it is that we're looking at. So it's a fragile situation, Sabby. They are experiencing a very serious fragility. They got this decrepit person who is running, for re-election, and many of the Democrats want him to engage in this debate so they can see if he's competent enough to hold his own in a debate, so that if not, they can replace him at the convention, at the Democratic Party convention, and put somebody else in. But who they got? The bobblehead, in the pantsuit, who they got? And where the majority of Republicans are saying they wish they had another candidate, the majority of the Democrats saying they wish they had another candidate. Although the Republicans are polling as more excited about fighting for the election of Trump than the Democrats are. The Democrats have lost all the young people. There's so many of the young people, etc. It's a serious contradiction that they're dealing with. And you've got the president of the United States, who clearly is using the presidency and the power of the state, this naked, open power of the state, being utilized to affect the outcome of this election. There's no doubt about it that part of Biden's campaign is putting Donald Trump in jail or doing everything to discredit, undermine him, etc. That's campaigning for Biden. Anyway, that's the kind of thing. But I just want to say this final thing related to that. So I was looking at an article in the Financial Times today, and they were talking about, in the process of this discussion, somebody comments that right now in this country, it is so obvious and evident on the right and the left and what have you, that political trials are abounding. There's these political trials. But what we say is that you have just noticed that political trials and the utilization of the state to affect outcomes of power in this country has always been obvious to us. And that's why you cannot account for all these black people in prison without that. You can't account for this huge disproportionate number of Africans, Mexicans, indigenous people locked up in these prisons without the state being involved in arranging a political outcome. It's a political thing that they've done. That's why these prisons are filled the way they are. And so This is what it is that we're contending with. And this is what we want to continue to explore and hold their feet to the fire around this whole question of First Amendment. If the First Amendment is good for you, then it's got to be good for us. And that's the question that this country is grappling with now. The First Amendment. And it's grappling with it as it relates to me, Trump, others who are out there in the world, Scott Ritter, all of these people whose crime has been talking. And like the government said in response to our brief, that it's not saying that you're lying. You could be telling the truth. If it makes us look bad, it's a damn crime. So anyway.
Well, it's kind of interesting because what happened to you and your organization kind of went under the radar, because I think it was that same week when the FBI actually did a raid on Trump and Mar-a-Lago, the same week that they did the pre-dawn raid for you and the African People's Socialist Party. So yours kind of got swept under the rug. It kind of reminds me of when Farrah Fawcett died, but then the same week Michael Jackson died. So Michael Jackson's death got more coverage than Farrah Fawcett's, right? Yeah. So it's the same thing. And everybody was like so focused on, oh my God, Trump. But part of me is like, wait a minute, did you guys just see our free speech rights attacked as citizens with an organization that's doing mutual aid and work on the ground? Like, Trump was really just like, look at the birdie over here. Don't look at what we're doing to the African People's Socialist Party over here. That's what it looks like. And it's like, are you paying attention? It's just like whenever we have like big events like holidays or like a Super Bowl or something like that. Like, look what happened with the Super Bowl, and then look what they were doing in Gaza.
Yep.
It's the same thing. It's like they don't want you to know that they're really attacking your rights on a deeply fundamental level. And let me ask you this. Do you think that in some ways, there are some stories that they sensationalize that take the focus off of what they're trying to do as far as taking away what little rights we have? I know that.
Yeah.
No. That don't have rights.
That's clear. They would do things to help people lose focus on our own circumstances, our own conditions, and a lawyer, I think, made the point that what they did to us and what they're doing to us with this law, I think it's something like 951, something that law that was created in 1917. And it's no coincidence that it was 1917, because that's the Russian Revolution and all these other things that they felt like they had to suppress at the time they made certain kinds of laws. But this is the first time in history that this law has been used against just speech. Trump, for example, they claim Trump took some documents and that he wasn't supposed to happen, although Biden did it too, but they haven't charged him. And others who they've used this law against had nothing. They were at least accused of something. Here, they're not talking about it was 5 kilos versus 20 kilos or any other kind of behavior, crime, criminal activity. It's just speech that they are targeting here. And this is the thing that, and so people will have an ability, even when they see Trump, because people have mentioned Trump. And by the way, what we see with Trump is a contest that's happening between sectors of the ruling class themselves who are using the state to attack each other. But all of them are united in attacking us. And so, yes, I do believe, I know they do that all the time. And I'm looking how African people in particular, can get carried away by Drake versus whatever the hell else they throw out for us to be looking at, as opposed to the reality, that's happening in the world. But what they've done, though, is really important in the sense that they put us in a situation not very different from what we saw in the 1960s with our communities, in the sense that when they talk the Russian talk, when they do all of this other stuff, and they talk about Ukraine and they have to deal with the question of reparations, they talk about giving us an opportunity to speak to ordinary Black people about what's happening in the world and show our people and our communities. That's where we see people facing gentrification, that they look at this murderous gentrification that's happening in Gaza right now. It gives us the opportunity to talk about Leonard Peltier, talking about gentrification. Look at the indigenous people lost every damn thing. And here's Leonard Peltier, 50 years in prison for defending the land that they stole from the indigenous people. This gives us an opportunity to have a much broader, much greater discussion among people. And this is where the revolution lies, in terms of an informed population in our communities that has organization and conscious of what's happening around them, that we give them the ability to see within this, in the particular contradictions that we are confronted with: police violence, gentrification, and all these other things. In the particular contradiction, there's a universal contradiction that's there. And our responsibility is to help the people see this universal contradiction that informs this particular thing that we are dealing with. And that's where the revolution lies. And that's what they're doing on college campuses. A whole new generation of people, white people and others, who are now in motion now and being politically informed. And guess what they're talking about? They're talking about colonialism. They're not talking about racism. They're talking about colonialism. And our responsibility is to show them that colonialism is colonial. Colonialism is colonialism in Gaza. Colonialism is colonialism in St. Louis. It's the colonialism in Cuba. It's colonialism all these other places. That's the foundation of the whole damn system, rests upon the stooped backs and scarred backs of the colonized peoples of the world. And I think we will, we look forward to being able to build this massive movement for resurgence, not just to have talking heads, not just to see who can get the most likes and most views, etc., but to take stuff, have people engaged in overturning these relationships, and fighting for the power over our own lives. You're not fighting for power when you're fighting against racism, but you're fighting against colonialism. And not only that, you're not just fighting against white people when you fight against colonialism. White people can fight against colonialism too. They can join with the colonized people to fight against colonialism. And this is something that we, have a responsibility to do. And that's why, like I said, we're looking between now and September 3rd, when this trial happened, the long hot summer. We plan to have massive mobilization of oppressed peoples coming from everywhere, with every question, from the issue of what they're doing and doing to Cuba, to Palestine, to people at Cop City, and our cases, and the struggle of oppressed African women, and putting Mexicans in cages in the southern border. All of this stuff, bring it all together, have a massive mobilization there in St. Petersburg, Florida. We intend to increase the population of St. Petersburg, Tampa, Florida, in a magnificent way, bringing everybody who can be brought to this. And because our objective, we say the trial has already begun, and it's not in that courtroom there. It's in public opinion, the masses of our people who they're trying to keep us. That's why they use flashbang grenades. That's why they're taking people off airplanes and taking their passports. They don't want the people to know. They don't want this kind of information. We're going to bring massive people together and then give them organization and help everybody to see the connection between all of these struggles. So there's different iterations of the struggle against colonialism, but we all involved in the same struggle. And that means that you can now have effectively a division of labor. A division of labor. You can't get this in cyberspace, right? But you can get this among people engaged in trying to change their lives. That's what the Mexicans want. That's what the Africans want. That's what the Filipinos want. That's what, peoples of the world, they don't want to live like this anymore. It's intolerable. Did you know? Yeah, it's intolerable.
I will say, Chairman, it's interesting when you mention labor and the type of movement that you want to build, because we are seeing more of the unions, or some of the unions, particularly the UAW, has decided to join along in the Palestinian movement. So this is big, like to have a union that is that big, that I think everyone knows at the UAW, to vocally come out and support the Palestinian movement. And it makes me wonder about, like, with this particular trial with the Uhuru group, what if labor could also participate and bring their voice to support you as well? What if, like, the UAW showed up to support your voice as well? Do you think that would speak volumes and really push more mainstream media to cover this trial in a fair way?
The mainstream media is not going to cover it in a fair way, even if you kidnap their mamas and said you're going to do bad things to them unless they're fair. No, this is part of the crisis that they're confronted with right now, is that there are even many Democratic Party people, many people who go along with the oppression of the Palestinian people. They have to contend with this heavy-handed measure that Biden and the Israelis are using, and how that's undermining their own thing. Because the labor union, generally speaking, and this is not to besmirch, like union work, but too often is an arm of the Democratic Party, just like the NAACP is an arm of the Democratic Party. And so a lot of them are now jumping ship from the strategic direction that the Democrats are moving, and there's a better way to do this thing. If you can make some kind of concessions, if Israel would just make some concessions, if you would just say, just cease fire and let some food get in, etc. But it doesn't resolve the question that you're talking about stolen land that the people are locked into, and that's what the Palestinians are fighting for. They're not fighting. They didn't engage in this movement, this struggle to have a ceasefire. They gave in this movement from the river to the sea. The Palestine must be free. And so some people and some institutions who are part of the democratic apparatus disagree. And that's what we're seeing. We're seeing disagreements happening within that apparatus. That's why some of them want to change. If they can get somebody else to run to be the face of the Democratic Party in this election, they'll do it. Even though I think it's too late to rescue the Democratic Party from this process they're involved in. So I think that's part of it. And yes, I do believe, that more and more people can't join you if you don't draw some lines. If you're just, just out there and everything is okay, then what do they have to join? But when you resurrect the real movement that people were extraordinarily sympathetic with, that set the terms for what progress looked like in this country and around this world, with African people, Black people in this country, Black Panthers, with Che Guevara and Cuba and the Palestinian movement, all of these things, they represent this incredible move to the future that people are extraordinarily sympathetic with. And we saw that happen. And we saw, that happened. And I just wanted to make another statement just in terms of this thing about Hamas. And they lied on Hamas about Hamas hating Jews. Well, the thing is that whether Hamas hate Jews or not is really not the damn question, because the Palestinians did not kill the damn Jews. It was white people who killed those Jews in Germany. And I just think that's really important to say that. And Jews are people like the rest of us. And as people who live in human society, they are governed by the same laws of society as every damn body else. And this whole notion, if I were Jewish, I would be really concerned about somebody trying to set me up. That's a setup to make Jews different from everybody else. That's what the people who hate Jews are saying, that you're different. And that's why the base is used to kill Jews and things like that. Jews are just like everybody else. And if you want to get retribution, or if you want to get reparations for what happened to Jews, you did right by asking Germany to pay reparations. If you're looking for a homeland for Jews, you don't take the land from the Palestinians, or like once you were threatening to do, take it from Uganda. You take it from Germany. You take it from those people who did all these crimes against Jews. And you talk about how they would deflect your attention to something that's not even, and then they will make the worst crime in history, they say, is the worst crime in history. There's never been a crime in history worse than the 6 million Jews who were killed. Well, during the colonial process, read Hosea Jaffe on A History of Africa. During the colonial process, there was 600 million people estimated to be in Africa. They killed 200 million African people. They killed a third of the African population. There was no such thing as genocide when they was killing Black people and they're killing indigenous people. Now genocide is this whole thing. And I'm opposed to murder. I'm opposed to mass murder of anybody in the world, but I'm not going to let this white power scapegoat the Palestinian, the Arabs, or Farrakhan, or the guy, the rapper, etc., for some anti-Semitic thing about Jews. Go to the source. Who caused the damn problem that they're fighting from? They can't. In Palestine, where Palestinians were Jewish, that they were Arab, they were Muslims, and they were Christians. That's what Palestine was. They created this false contradiction, and that we're looking at now. Not Hamas, not the Palestinians, and Hamas is the response to this thing they did. And if you want to go further than that, look at the Balfour Declaration. During the same time we're talking about the Russian Revolution, 1917, 1916, Balfour, where the Lord Balfour in England gave Palestine to white people, the Jews in Europe. So this is what we're looking at. And they created all these borders and stuff that we're looking at. Look at the Sykes-Picot agreement between France and England that was supposed to include Russia, but it couldn't include Russia because Russia made the damn revolution. But they thought they could still get Russia to participate because so many of the Russian leaders were Jewish, like Trotsky and some of the others, etc. But they redivided the world. What you look at now in terms of Lebanon, Palestine, Syria, the existing borders, Saudi Arabia, white people, England and France created those borders. That's causing all the hell that we look at. Look at it. Google it. Sykes-Picot. It's spelled P-I-C-O-T. This is the arrangement that they made, and we're suffering from that arrangement today, and they're killing us because we want to get out of that arrangement, and we might make mistakes in the process of doing it, and people do that, especially when you put them under severe stress and what have you. People make mistakes, and people say things that they might not say otherwise, etc. But the problem is not those mistakes and what they said. The problem is the oppression of the whole goddamn world by this colonial setup that's resting on all of us. Everybody. And so everybody's got a chance to escape from this. You know, the white people, the African people that have to struggle against colonialism, and don't require me to fight against racism because you ain't that damn important.
And not to mention, when you talk about some type of repair, there still hasn't been reparations paid to descendants of slavery in this country. No. And so when I see people like Richie Torres and Noah Tishby, make this comparison. Richie Torres, again, is also, by the way, is not a descendant of slavery. Mm-hmm. But Richie Torres and Noah Tishby make this comparison that we have the same struggle. We went through the same. No, we don't. No, we didn't go through the same thing. You received some type of repair. You received reparations. Descendants of slavery have never received reparations till this day. Our people have not been made whole. So I hate when people make that comparison because there is a big difference. We went through systemic injustice in this country. We still have to go through systemic injustice in this country, whether it's the education system, the criminal justice system, the court system, policing system, the healthcare system. When you talk about the communities that have bad water, most of the time it's the poor Black communities and sometimes poor white communities as well. But most of the time it's poor Black communities or indigenous communities. So the thing is that we have never been made whole. And it's interesting to me how our politicians can just jump the gun and they can move mountains urgently when it comes to Israel. Not even people in this country, but when it comes to Israel. But when it comes to descendants of slavery, they give the same response every time. We need to look into it. We need to do a study about it. Yeah. When the study and the research has already been done.
Yeah. You've just defined colonialism. That's what you've just defined. You're talking about all these issues that impact us. That is colonialism. At one point, Karl Marx talked about how capitalism got started, and he defined this thing he called the primitive accumulation of capital. Because you got to say, how did it get started? Did Jesus bring it? Did Muhammad bring it? Where did the hell did this thing start from that gave white people and all in Europe all the resources of the world at our expense? And Marx says that in order to understand this, there's this primitive accumulation of capital that was not a consequence of capitalist production, but a starting point. He said that starting point was turning Africa into a warren for the commercial hunting of Black skins. It was in turn the indigenous people in the Americas into the mines, bringing up gold and silver. It had to do with East India, that is India, and something like, I think 50 million people in India died as a part of what England did, etc., to create the whole damn system. It's a system that rests upon, and Marx mischaracterized it when he called it the primitive accumulation of capital, because even that is a statement that made us objects of somebody else's history. We're not there to make history for Europe. We have our own existence, our own agency that we're fighting for, and the indigenous people have been fighting. There's so many people who have been disappeared through this process. There's so many islands, out there where there used to be indigenous people, like in Haiti. There used to be indigenous people. They've been disappeared. And given an opportunity, they'll disappear everybody in the world to keep this thing afloat. And that's one of the things that they're trying to do with us. And that's why we have to be so conscious of our own interests as we move forward. It's so conscious. And I'm not saying this as some kind of race nationalist. I'm not a race nationalist, but we have to bring some kind of science into this discussion. Can we explain the world? Can we understand it without doing chicken bones, throwing chicken bones? Can we understand it without, the good reverend saying, somebody made a good speech and that's why it happened? Are there objective basis for being able to understand what is happening in the world and how we got to be where the hell we are now? That will instruct us in terms of how to get out of where we are now. Yeah.
I had a question for you as well, Chairman, because I see this happening a lot, especially within the Western left, especially. But one of my questions is, what do you say to those who particularly espouse to be on the left?
Yeah.
who say that we should not talk about race or identity as a means to try to unite the left around just class. What would you say in response to those who really just want us to pull back on this talk about race?
That's really interesting because that's been forever the case. And what we say is the real class question is concentrated in the colonial question. Colonialism. You want to look at, that's why when you see the state acts to oppress people and coerce people, and the sharpest expression of the state, when we talk about the state, we're talking about this whole, a setup of police and prisons and court system and jails and all of that. When you see the concentration of state power, you're looking at the concentration of where the class issue is sharpest. Where do you see that at? You see that, and that's the Black communities, the Mexican communities here. You see that even in the world, they're not. The U.S. is not attacking Greece. They're attacking Palestine. They're attacking, other peoples around the world, because in the global sphere, and what has happened with the advent of the colonial mode of production, for the first time in history, there is a world economy came about through us. That there was no world economy before they start dispersing us all around the world. That's where the whole colonial apparatus comes from. That's why there's a Venezuela. That's why there's a Cuba, Jamaica, all these other places, because of the dispersal of African people to these places and setting up a colonial, the colonial system, etc. So this is the class question. And what you're doing is avoiding the class question and trying to secure your place on the pedestal of the oppression of the colonized peoples of the world. We invite you. We want you to join in this class struggle with the oppressed, with the colonized, and what have you. Some years ago, Amilcar Cabral, I'm sure you're familiar with Cabral, who was a revolutionary leader out of Guinea in Africa, and which was under colonial domination by the Portuguese. And the Portuguese left was to always complain and say to Cabral, that stop fighting against colonialism, say fight against fascism, which was affecting the Portuguese people, right? Fight against fascism. If you fight against fascism, then that will destroy colonialism. And Cabral said, I don't know about that. He said, we oppose fascism wherever it rears its head, but we know this for sure. If you destroy colonialism, fascism will fall. And so this year, they're facing the 50th anniversary of the so-called Carnation Revolution, when Portuguese fascism fell. You know when Portuguese fascism fell? 7 months after the Declaration of Independence by Guinea. So this is the central question. When the French communists were opposed to the liberation of Vietnam, opposed to the liberation for a long time, opposed to the liberation of Algeria, the French communists, the French left, they were all opposed to it. And so this is what we've had to fight all this time, because they're trying to preserve their location on this pedestal. So the world is much bigger than they. And that's the thing that we have to, we want to educate you. We want to educate you and give you an opportunity to come on the right side of history, because we're going to make this movement. We're going to win our freedom, and there's nothing you can say to stop it. You're not doing anything on your end to keep making it unnecessary for us to do this. We're having to do this because the left isn't doing it, right? If the left was doing it, we wouldn't have to do this, right? So, and the most severe oppression, exploitation of working people of the world are happening in the colonies. And it feeds the working people in France and in the United States and et cetera. So this is an arrangement that we need to change, because it's a form of payoff. It's a part of what some Marxists and communists have referred to as a labor aristocracy. We've given you an opportunity to join with the rest of the world and destroy this system that opposes and oppresses and exploits us all. Yeah.
I will say, and I'll leave on this note, but I will just say that you can look no further than I know the recent story about Dr. Raven Baxter. This is someone who is a molecular scientist, pretty well known in the Virginia Beach area. She's been on the news multiple times just for her work. Just recently was banned from buying a condo once the seller found out that the couple, her and her boyfriend who wanted to buy the condo, were Black. Not because she didn't have the money, not because her class. I mean, she's a doctor. She's well off than me and Jaybe combined, but only because she was Black.
Yeah. That's the world we live in. So that the truth is that the white workers, generally speaking, are much better off in many instances, and sometimes even with high school education than college graduated Black people in this country. Got more money, got more wealth, etc. That's the reality we live with. Uhuru.
That's right. Uhuru, thank you so much, Chairman Omali. I
Thank you.
You'll still be here.
Right on.
All right, take care.
Sabby. Uhuru. Forward to St. Petersburg. Let's be to Tampa, September 3rd. We're bringing everybody in the world to Tampa, Florida. Uhuru.
Take care, Sabs. So, and thank you so much for that answer too, because a lot of what we see is, there is a scientific way of looking at it. Whereas, capitalism requires a certain type of hierarchy as far as who's socially acceptable. And, even though our ancestors were forced here, we're still always considered to be the least socially acceptable, no matter our status, really. And so I think this is one of the reasons why it is important, especially for the white left, to look at it as we have to look at it as also not just about class, but what does colonialism have to do with our oppression, and how they can have solidarity with us to get rid of colonialism? Because ultimately, what are we to do as far as, we're the minority, right? And so we also would need, it would behoove them to be able to assist us as well, so that they can also have liberation from this capitalist system too. Because ultimately, being taken for a ride in this country, but it's like they're being used to keep this system in place in that way.
Well, they've been well fed to keep the system that way at the expense of colonized people. When they're in St. Louis, there's this thing that's called the Del Mar Divide that separates North and South. There's a Del Mar Boulevard separates North and South St. Louis. And North and South St. Louis. And in North St. Louis, that's where most of the poverty is concentrated. That's where most of the African people are concentrated. And in South St. Louis, that's where most of the wealth and white people are concentrated. And you don't find, as soon as you cross the Del Mar Divide, that you're out of the African community. And people are poor here. And the thing is that we say, and I don't want to go into all of that, but it's a plan to poverty. That's the point that I'm making. I'm not just saying, like it's some kind of conspiracy thing, but the Rand Corporation actually developed a plan in 1972 that called Team 4 that was designed to impoverish the African community here. And so it did that. But the point that we make is that the milk that should be in the refrigerator for our children is in the refrigerator over in south of the Del Mar Divide. I mean, the reason that you can buy a mango in the wintertime in the United States is because they're expropriating these mangoes from India and all these other places around the world. They're taking where people are starving. You get better Chinese and Indian food, or certainly Indian food here in the United States than you can in India. The thing is, as it's hooked up to a single kind of social system. And that's the thing that we really try to help people understand, that you're looking at a mode of production. It's not just a lot of different colonialism. It's one colonialism. It's one world connected to a single process of producing life that everybody participates in. It's a parasitic process, and it benefits the colonizers, and all white people are colonizers, and doesn't mean that all of them. And that's why we want to offer them an opportunity. You don't have to be a colonizer. You cannot not be white, but you can. And there's not enough tanning booths and stuff like that and dreadlocks you can grow to change that. You can't change that, and that's all right. But you don't have to be a colonizer. And that's the thing, that you don't have to be party to sucking the blood of everybody else around the world. That's one thing. The other thing that's important for us is that there are almost 2 billion African people in the world who've been separated at gunpoint. That Africans in this country, along with the indigenous people in this country, are the only people who did not come in looking for a better way of life. We lost a better way of life as a consequence of coming here. And the ones who brought us here got a better way of life at the expense of the indigenous people, at the expense of us and everybody else. We are trying to unite all of the oppressed, all of those people, to fight to change our circumstance, our conditions. And African people are spread throughout the world. We have this movement, this party, the Uhuru movement, doesn't just exist inside the United States. We're in the Caribbean. We are England. We are in France. We have footprints in places like Germany and Belgium. We are in South Africa, in the townships in South Africa. You won't see us on CNN, but we are in the townships, organized the most oppressed and impoverished sector of the population in South Africa. We're in Namibia. We are in Ghana. We are in Zambia. In Sierra Leone, in all these other places, because we say one Africa, one nation, and that's been forcibly split up, dispersed, and what have you. And because of that, it's been easy to just steal every damn thing from us. Everybody has had an Africa plan except Africa since Garvey. With Garvey, we had an Africa plan. But France has an Africa plan, even though it's being shattered today. You can see in places, Nigeria and other places. The U.S. has an Africa plan, even though it is troubled right now because of the resistance of the people. Turkey has an Africa plan. India has an Africa plan. And we too have an Africa plan that involves Black people all around the world, recognizing that the 12 million square miles of wealth and resources in Africa is the birthright of every living Black person on the planet Earth. And I think that's extremely important, because much of the concentration of colonial powers that we see happening revolve around Africa. There's not a single modern economy that could survive without the resources they steal from Africa, whether it's cobalt, coltan, silver, and all these other stuff that's necessary to keep computers and airplanes and cell phones operating. It's Africa. That's the critical place, and that belongs to African people. And that's why it's really important for us to understand and have a single a movement, conscious of its interests, just as we did during the Garvey era. Nkrumah tried to make this happen. And that's the thing that we're rebuilding too. And that's one of the reasons that we're under attack, because we are in Africa, we are in the Caribbean, we are in England and in France, and have footprints, like I said, in Germany. We've been in Germany, in Belgium, in Sweden. We've been all these places, and there are forces who are followers of us, even if they're not part of our organization, in the places that I just mentioned. And the ideas that we are sharing right now are being shared in all these places. And I think it's really important for us to understand that just recently, a few days ago, Joe Biden had what he called a Kenya U.S. summit, where the president of Kenya, this guy Ruto, was brought, and they made a big fanfare of that. And people who are part of the Democratic apparatus, they were saying that one of the reasons that Biden did that is because he is losing Black support in this country. And so him being with this black man from Kenya, somehow helps to show up his base, and which is recognition on his part, that other than Lloyd Austin, other than the other people we're talking about in the military, it's an expression on their part of recognition, the connection that Black people and the sympathy that Black people have for each other all around the world. Of course, this same Kenya, they're using right now as a military force in Haiti, to control Haiti. They're sending a Black person, African, to Haiti to help reestablish the kind of control they want to have in Haiti. This is the stuff we are stuck with, that we are dealing with, and clear we are, on this. And I'm not I'm not a race nationalist. I was in a younger days, but I really believe that I have achieved a level of scientific understanding and of the system that holds us and locks us in this insidious kind of death grip that will not allow us to have a future ever. Our children will have no future ever. We will be humiliated forever. They'll take us to their courts just for standing up. Who ever heard of it being legal under slavery, freedom to be legal? That's an extraordinary concept, to be legal. And I would remind people that they put Nat Turner on trial when they captured him. They put him on trial. They convicted Nat Turner in their court when they captured him in 1831, I think that was. And Turner said that they said you're guilty. Said, I don't feel guilty. And the thing is that if they had freed Nat Turner in that trial, if it's possible to conceive a not guilty verdict in that trial, Nat Turner still would have been enslaved.
Yeah.
And that's the relationship that we're looking at right now. So we need to organize. We need to really, really organize to achieve agency as Black people, and finding, the best kinds of allies that we can in the world in this process, and especially people who suffer from colonialism like us, and all these white people on these campuses and other places who want to be on the right side of history, help them to understand what they're looking at when they see Palestine is something that's right across the railroad tracks, across the freeway in the cities that they live in right in this country.
Yeah. It's interesting also because you just made me think about, because they recognize seeing ourselves in other people, because I think it was Dr. Ruha Benjamin. She was the valedictorian in 2001 for Spelman College. And she gave a speech recently saying that Black faces in high places aren't going to save us. And one of the things I think that the United States government especially recognizes is that if they see a Black face, but they're also talking about liberation, that is dangerous. This is why they have to have people like Lloyd Austin. They had to have people like Colin Powell. They had people like Condoleezza Rice. They had to have people like Barack Obama in power.
Yes.
And to show that, wait, we can also serve you guys too, but you're going to do it in a colonial way. Yeah. I wanted to share this really quick, because this is why they see people like yourself, people like myself, we're so dangerous, is because if we're not only a Black face, but we're also talking about true liberation, that makes us dangerous. And here is Maurice Bishop. You probably heard this before, but this is for our audience so they can see.
The real reason for all of this hostility is because some perceive that what is happening in Grenada can lay the basis for a new socio-economic and political path of development. They give all kinds of reasons and excuses, some of them credible, some utter rubbish. There's an interesting one that we saw very recently in a secret report of the State Department. I want to tell you about that one, so you can reflect on that one. That secret report made this point, that Grenada is different to Cuba and Nicaragua, and the Grenada Revolution is in one sense even worse, I'm using their language, than the Cuban and Nicaraguan revolutions, because the people of Grenada and the leadership of Grenada speaks English. And therefore can communicate directly to the people of the United States. They said that 95% of our population is Black, and they had a correct statistic. And if we have 95% of predominantly African origin in our country, then we can have a dangerous appeal to 30 million Black people in the United States. The real.
So, I think that when I saw that, I was like, oh.
Yeah, we had a relationship with the New Jewel movement even before they went to power. we had a relationship with the New Jewel movement. You're absolutely correct. This is why this was the movement that they succeeded ultimately in crushing. This movement was not an anti-racist movement. It was an anti-colonial movement. And when Maurice Bishop was talking, he was recognizing the fact that the oppressor recognizes that colonized people, Africans in particular, have the ability to speak to each other and work on a single accord. And that's absolutely true. Yeah, Bishop was a profoundly significant force in the New Jewel movement that they had was powerful, and he was right on point. And that was more or less a sentiment that existed within the African liberation movement everywhere that he just expressed and that I'm expressing to you right now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And one of the things I'll let you go after this, but one of the things I wanted to add to your point is that if you notice in the Black community, especially in here in the United States, we have a lot of cultural pull. If you think about even just the onset of our, hip hop or, jazz or any type of influence that we have culturally, when we set a trend, it goes worldwide. So thinking about that, if we start to set a trend of decolonization, setting a trend of workers uniting, of our material needs actually being met in a system that is egalitarian and outside of capitalism, that is a trend that the Western powers and Western hegemony is so afraid of. This is why they assassinated Fred Hampton. This is why they assassinated Malcolm X. This is why they assassinated people like Martin Luther King Jr. Because they knew that we set the trend, then therefore the world will follow.
Right
because
on.
Am I overstepping?
Right on. That's why, you may not be familiar with the Black Power Blueprint. I know you're in Orlando, but you need to come to St. Louis. You see what I'm talking about? Yeah. And we have something like 52 independent economic development programs. We have that's part of what it is they're trying to attack. We've created markets in food deserts. We've created food markets. We have created the ability. We've destroyed and rebuilt housings here in St. Louis as an example. And we're not saying that we some petty bourgeois like developers, but we're saying all of this is a negation of colonialism and the colonial power. This is you have to see what I'm talking about because it's hard for me to explain it. Go to handsoffuhuru.org. And I think you'll be able to see some of the projects that they are attacking when they attack us. It's this independent development. It's this independent development that's really, like a problem for them that makes it necessary for them. We say there's no such thing as a food desert, it's a power desert. So we brought farmers market there, and we create a situation where African people can begin to do trade with each other, and so the money can begin to circulate in our communities. We've created a record, what do you call it? Bakery cafe. We've got a huge, massive place that we purchased for that, and then in the interim, we just got one that will be opening within the next several weeks right here in St. Louis. We refurbished it. We're doing all of this kind of stuff, and Africans, they recognize us for what we're doing in terms of economic development for our communities and what have you. This is what they don't want. They don't want to be able to show there's an alternative, that you don't have to be on your bellies all the time crawling and, etc. We put $150,000 basketball court right down the street from here because African children are playing in the streets, dodging cars, trying to play basketball using these makeshift hoops and stuff like that. We put a state-of-the-art $150,000 basketball court. Somebody say, well, why you put $150,000? Why you spend $150,000 on a basketball court? Why don't you do something else? Be said, because our children need to be able to see the future. They need to be able to see beyond the limitation that's imposed on them. And so that's why we do it. They said you can't do that. If you put a basketball court up there, they're going to be shooting each other, et cetera, et cetera. This is what they're saying, because there are a lot of horizontal violence here in St. Louis. But what happened was that there's not been a single incident. The people keep it clean themselves. They just walk in, they play basketball. The community is being changed. Even people who were in these different sets, as so-called gangs and what have you, when they are now together when it comes to that basketball court. That's the kind of thing that we're doing. And that's the kind of thing we say we have to do. You can't speak of freedom, real freedom, if you don't have any economy. If you can't feed, clothe, and house yourself, you have nothing. You will be on your belly crawling forever. And that's the kind of thing that we're taking on. And one of the reasons, a major reason they're attacking us, and because we're saying this to everybody. We tell everybody, come to St. Louis, because you don't believe me and you can't understand what I'm saying unless you see it, unless you see the Uhuru house that I'm sitting in right now that had been abandoned for years. So there was no floor. You could walk in, you see the basement, the back wall was gone and what have you. Coming at Deputy Chair Omali Yeshitela came in here and, and you should see how this place looks now as a consequence of that. And the other places, we built houses for an African independence workforce program, where we're going to have Africans who come out of the prisons, men and women. They can be trained in culinary arts and things like that. They can have jobs when they get out. And we bought a fourplex where they have some place to stay, top and bottom, with each of with there being 4 apartments in each, and being able to hold 2 people each. One is named for Asada Shakur. One is named for Sundiata Akoli. One is named for political prisoners. All of that. That's right there in St. Louis. You can see it. It's concrete. This is not just some empty discussion that we're having. Somebody once said that philosophers have explained the world in different ways, but the point is to change it. And so that's exactly what we engage in doing. We say, it's not what we say, it's what we do.
Yeah, and I remember on my channel, I had Akila Enai on, and she was talking. Yeah. Oh, man, she is amazing. And so she was talking about also, you guys have a doula program to help pregnant mothers give birth. So you guys are doing so much for the community, and really, you guys are really the blueprint for what we here at RBN are trying to do. Yeah. And so I just want to take, I believe in giving people their flowers now. One of the things I want to do is all of you at the Uhuru movement, at African People's Socialist Party, I want to thank you for being the shining example for us.
Uhuru.
It means so much to us.
Well, that's the government is trying to put this light out, so it won't. But, what we say is that we're winning, and we say no compromise, no surrender, and we're going to court on the 3rd. If they still are determined to put us on trial, we'll be there September 3rd. We're calling everybody to come September 3rd, calling everybody to go to handsoffUhuru, UHURU.org, so that you can find your place. It's going to be an extraordinary thing. And so from all of September, we're characterizing between now and September as the long, hot summer, because we're doing all kinds of work. All kinds of events will be happening, mobilizations, marches, demonstrations, conferences, etc., right there in the Tampa Bay area where this trial is going to be happening. I really hope to see you there, Brother James. And, it's close to you talking about looking at having to be in Tampa anyways. You might want to use this as an opportunity to scope it out.
Yeah, especially when I'm trying to get a transplant. It's like, I need to go there for an appointment, and I need to go there to see a trial.
Right on. Splendid. Yeah.
And you know what? I'm just sharing the link with everybody if you guys would like to, and also to get more updates from the Uhuru movement, from the African People's Socialist Party. There's also their YouTube channel called The Burning Spear TV. That is also on here as well. Give them a subscribe as well, so that you guys can keep up to date with their channel too, because that's also extremely important as well. So, man, and I'm just excited for what you guys have coming up. What are some, besides, because we all know about the trial coming up, but is there any other program things that you guys are doing on the ground that's coming up that people may not know about, or that people would be interested to hear about?
I think it would be important. The academic committee of the Hands Off Uhuru committee on June 8th, we're having a really important forum on the Black education and the struggle for anti-colonial free speech, and some extraordinary people who are going to be participating in that. One, Comrade Masamela Odom, Professor Dr. Odom, and there will be Betty Davis, who heads up Black Community Control of Education project, and Professor Robin Kelly, who has written all kinds of books. You need to read Robin Kelly. If you haven't read anything else, read Robin Kelly. And he's written, that our history has always been contraband. You got the author of Black Scare, Red Scare, Professor Sharice Burden Stelly. She'll be presenting in this forum, and the attacks on African cultural workers by Professor Youssef Doucet. And so this is going to be on the 8th. And it's going to be where you are. It'll be happening, I think, at 2 p.m. It's going to be 1 p.m. Central Time, where I'm located, and 11 a.m. in the West Coast. So that's one very important thing that's coming in the next few days, and I hope that people will come out for that, because it's really important to have this also pushed in the academia. Because that's really influential. If you can have these discussions, which is one of the reasons I did that debate at Oxford, like a few years ago, because to get these ideas out in academia, there are all kinds of students and people and who we reach, through this process. And especially now when you see the campuses are aflame, to be able to take this kind of education to the people, I think is really important. So that's the big thing that's right now on the agenda that people should pay attention to and come out for.
All right. Look, I am so happy that you are able to come here on Revolutionary Blackout Network. You really just elevated, and you made me grow like 5 inches, and I just really want to extend my appreciation to you coming on. And please do not be a stranger. I would love to see you on here more regularly, Chairman. It's such a pleasure and an honor to have you. So thank you very much for gracing us with your presence today.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your courage. Because, again, that's why they're attacking everybody we're looking at for talking, for speaking. And the fact that you are here and that this is an asset that's available to us is extremely important, because we are engaged in a war of ideas. And this helps to add to our arsenal. So thank you very much. And Sister Comrade Sabby, thanks to the both of you, James. Thank you. Uhuru.
Thank you, Chairman. All right. Uhuru.
Uhuru.
All right, everybody. So that was Chairman Omali Yeshitela from the African People's Socialist Party that was just here. It was an amazing conversation. I was excited about it when we confirmed for that interview to happen. And it, you know how when you have a plan to have a conversation with somebody, but it actually goes, and you think it's going to be good, but it goes even better than what you anticipated. This is one of those times. So yes, if you guys have not already, please make sure to go to handsoffuhuru.org. This gives you all the updates about what they're doing so that you can know what is going on with them and also the programs that they're doing on the ground. If you're in the areas of either St. Petersburg or St. Louis, you guys can try to assist them, whatever if they need some volunteers. Or if you would like to, you can also donate to them to make sure that they have their legal fees covered. So these are some of the things that you can do. And I think it's really important. Like right now, they're 8% to their total right now on this. So if you guys would like to, you guys can always go to handsoffuhuru.org. So thank you so very much to Chairman Omali Yeshitela once again. And I want to get other members from the Uhuru movement as well on. As of course, I've had Chairman Omali Yeshitela on my channel before. I know Sabby's had him on her channel. I also had Akila Enai. She is also on part of that organization as well. She is a brilliant educator, and I would like to try to get her on here as well. You guys would absolutely love her, and I would love to get other people on as well. With that being said, we're going to go through a couple of house cleaning things, but if you guys have not already, go ahead and give the stream a like. This pushes us out into the algorithm so that we are more present in front of more eyes so that we can continue to educate and activate people as we continue to inform as well. So if you guys have not already, and you guys can also share, and if you guys haven't subscribed, go ahead and subscribe. This is the type of content that we like to do here on RBN. So thank you very much for that. If you guys have not already, you guys can go to revolutionaryblackout.substack.com. This gives you email notifications whenever we go live or upload clips. Now, just to let you guys know, an article is also being written by Rome, and there's another person that he has a co-author. I forget her name, but Rome is going to be putting out an article on Revolutionary Blackout Network Substack. So if you guys have not already, you guys can subscribe there to get email notifications. If you guys do not wish to do that, then you guys can also click the link bell as well so that you guys can get those notifications via YouTube. You can actually get you can customize it for either occasional uploads and live streams or all uploads and live streams, but you guys have that there as well. And if you guys would like to email us, you can email us any stories you find or any questions you may have at revolutionaryblackout@outlook.com. So yes. Now, just to give you guys a shout out, I want to shout out all of the patrons on Patreon. Without you guys, we would not be able to do the work that we are doing. And because of your contribution, this makes it easier for us to be able to not just talk the talk, but walk the walk. And so as we are continuing this work here within this space, we want to encourage you to try to do the same. This is why we have chapters across the United States now. We have chapters here in Detroit, as well as Boston, St. Louis, and Orlando. So we just want to thank all of you for allowing us to be able to do this work and to do it in real time. So it is deeply appreciated to every single one of you for helping us literally keep the lights on. And yeah, that's that. So what we're going to do now is we are going to get into the chat. So I'm going to check on the Rockfin. It looks like we're pretty good on Rockfin so far. So we're going to check in the rest of the chat and go to super chats because I want to make sure that I get finished on time because brother's got to eat. So we're going to go over the super chats first, and then we'll go over to some of the welcome chats as well. So we first have MC. Thank you very much for the super chat saying Chairman Yeshitela is a living example of revolutionary sense making, love and solidarity RBN. Well, thank you so very much, MC. And it was definitely a privilege. It's always a privilege to have the chairman on. James Starks, thank you so much for this super chat. Says, thank you for the super sticker. We have Nick of RBN, our comrade, saying Omali is a true black leader, not the black celeb sellouts they try to push on us. Like Curtis 50 Cent Jackson. Yeah, we saw you on Capitol Hill, wading through the swamp. Anywho, that's crazy. Unemployed Scholar, thank you so very much for the super sticker. Means so much. Roger Meadows, thank you very much for the super chat. Says, did the DOJ drop the case against Uhuru? No, the trial will be on September 3rd. So mark that in your calendars as well, because they're really trying to go after them. It reminds me of how, they went after, Mumia Abu Jamal. It's the same deal. Perry Stein, thank you so very much for this super chat. Says, what is happening with Breonna Joy Gray? Tweeted she was fired from Rising, then took it down as she has been hacked by Zionists. I don't know. This is my first hearing about this. I hope she wasn't. But yeah, I mean, she's been handing it to Zionists over the weekend. It's been pretty entertaining to see her really, straight mollywop them online. But I don't know. This is my first time hearing about this, but I hope she's still with Rising, because they need an anti-Zionist, anti-imperialist voice there. But I don't know. But thank you very much for letting me know, Perry. We have another super sticker from Unemployed Scholar. Thank you very much. Appreciate this one. We have do all things with love. Says usury is prohibited in Islam, a community-centered religion. It's why those in power who profit from our isolation and misery find it so problematic. This is actually very interesting, because there's a Muslim member of the Orlando chapter in RBN. And one of the things that she was conveying to us is really about how it's deeply looked down upon any type of exploitation of people. And so it kind of makes you think about, well, if they are deeply anti-exploitation, and technically, if you think about it, real Christianity is also anti-exploitation as well, but it's perverted in some ways, because especially with, the duopoly, they like to pervert, religions and things like that. But because of, these Abrahamic religions, when you're looking at them from their purest form, like, real true Judaism, real true Christianity, real true, Islam, is that they look down upon any type of exploitation, period. So therefore, they have to try to pervert some form of it in order to keep the system of capitalism, to keep the system of colonialism, to keep the system of imperialism in place, so that they can say, well, we're following it too, when in reality they're not. It's just really interesting. Thank you very much for this, Unemployed Scholar, this super sticker. Tim, though, says, love RBN, keep up the fight, Jaybe and Sabby based. Thank you so very much for this. And thank you very much for this other super chat. Perry Stein says, if Bree wasn't fired, someone's hacking her tweets. Well, I'm going to have to take a look at that when we're done. Also, just want to say hello to some of the people in the chat saying, so kudos saying, sup, y'all. We have Carpe Diem says, freedom for Omali Yeshitela, solidarity with the African People's Socialist Party. Thank you very much. Jacqueline says, hey, everyone, just going to pop the kettle for a cup of refreshing tea. Thank you very much. I just moved, so I have to find the kettle so I can make some tea too. Net Rando says, fist bumps and howdies. Good to see you, Net Rando. Yay, yay. Chambers says, what's up, family? What's up? Yay, yay. Yay, yay. All right, we have Croaky coming in saying, hands off Uhuru. Yes, Retro Gamer coming in saying hello. V. Olas de Tears says, is that a peace sign? Yeah, that's a peace sign. I love it. Good to see you. We have Christopher saying, been waiting for this, so excited. Yes, me too. Amanda coming in saying hi and hearts. Good to see you. PG2IND says, this man is living history. God bless him. Absolutely agreed. Leroy says, gamer. Hello to gamer. All right. V says, it seems those forces were trained by the IOF like the other ones. Absolutely, they were. EL says, hashtag Uhuru. Yes, Uhuru. All right. Roger Meadows says, sounds like I'm about to hear some good news. Hopefully there will be good news in a few months. MC says, shameful. Yes, what they're doing is absolutely shameful. Victor Devan says, let's go. Thank you so very much. Midwestern Marks, friend to RBN, says, free Uhuru. Absolutely. Wari coming in saying, hey, everybody. All right. John Kemper, Blue Marble, Adam Bashir, my homie, coming in saying peace, love, and solidarity. Rondo Ellsworth says, peace, 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 fam. Yes, 3 times for emphasis. 3 times for emphasis. Gostart says, namaste, namaste, namaste. Says, breaking. West Bank is on fire. Settlers carry out an attack on the southern area of the town of Kasara, south of Nablus. R plus mind blown says, by the way, Hamas is not in the West Bank. Absolutely, yes. Hamas is not in the West Bank. So if the IOF is attacking the West Bank, there's no reason for them to do so. Hamas is not there. So why else would they do that? Thank you very much for that, Gostart. Appreciate it. We have another RBN Orlando chapter member, Tim Price, coming in saying, just got on, stream looks good, JB. Yes. And thank you so much for your contribution to helping this happen. Oh, much appreciated, Tim. Good to see you. We have Rome in here, who is an RBN comrade and member, says, damn right, we need the numbers. Not just anyone, but it's going to take a lot of us to get this done. Absolutely. Thank you so very much to Rome. I can't believe I forgot to post that. My fault. Let me see. Young Black Economist says, Jesus wasn't insane. I don't know that word. Are you using big words on me, Young Black Economist? Says a young itinerant rabbi who broke the law. Yep. He was the rabbi. He was him. He was him. Especially when he did in that temple. That was great. Yes, Notori. Jaybe, is that a new place? Yes. Because remember, I told everybody that they basically sold the condo I was living in and they were kicking us out to give us 60 days to move. That was over 60 days ago. So now I'm in a new place. And yes, we are now situated in a new place. And I'm going to say that is actually better than where we were before. So it was really a blessing in disguise. But it was extremely stressful. And there were tears. There was stress. But because of you guys assisting with this and helping us to be able to get here, I'd like to thank everybody as well for helping us to get into the new place. Those of you who have donated for moving expenses, that has meant so much. That has made the world of difference. So thank you so very much. Thank you to everybody that has donated. Thank you to former RBN member CJ as well for doing a fundraiser. Thank you to Nick, Rome, Sabby as well for helping to raise funds so that I'd be able to not be homeless. So I very much appreciate it. We're breathing now. So thank you. Now, with that being said, I'm going to be heading on out. It is a little bit later than what I wanted it to be, but it is so good to see all of you here. This is actually my first stream since I moved. So Yes, and I will be here on Sunday for the Jaybe show on RBN, and then look forward to seeing me this Tuesday as well for my channel. If you guys would like to, you guys can go to my channel as well as Sabby's channel. It's linked in the description down below. So yes, thank you so very much to everybody for tuning in. I'm going to give my customary bid you farewell is water your plants, water yourselves, leave the world better than you found it. Smoke them if you got them, drink them if you got it, if you ain't got them. Then watch something funny because joy is revolutionary. Read because reading is fundamental. And also make sure to support different organizations, for instance, like the African People's Socialist Party, like Real Orlando, like the Florida Palestine Network, and many other different organizations that are trying to lead for true liberation in this world. Because without the organizations, how can we organize? That's what matters the most, so that we can actually change this world. It means a lot. So, anywho, with that, in addition to and furthermore, I just want to thank all of you for tuning in. You guys have yourself a wonderful evening. Forehead kisses, because that's how I roll. And I'll see you all in the next one.